Hey guys, it's Kerry, my review for Lars von Trier's controversial new film, The House That Jack Built. And what The House That Jack Built is essentially about is we center on the character of Jack. He is a serial killer who has killed many people throughout the years. And basically the whole film is 5 random incidents that occurred that involved him killing an individual and him kind of reflecting on it. And that's really all I'm going to say. So The House That Jack Built overall, I was intrigued by this movie. I wouldn't say I was hyped for it. I wouldn't even say I was excited for it because I really didn't know how this was going to turn out. Now, you have to understand, I can't say I'm a Lars von Trier fan because the only other film I've seen from him is Antichrist, which is a great film, mind you. I really do love that one a lot. I think that is a very well-crafted, very interesting film with some very grotesque imagery, but some really great ideas thrown in there. And von Trier is one of those directors that he really isn't afraid about pushing the boundaries of cinema and things like that, and he really does go against the grain of any sort of rules whatsoever, and that's something I really do admire about him. When it came to this film, though, you know, there was so much backlash and so much controversy that I really did not know how this was going to turn out. I was really hoping this would be something great, and I'm very happy to say that is The House That Jack Built worth the controversy? Hell yes, definitely it is worth the controversy, but it is a really great film. I think this is a very well done film overall that really does examine the life of this character very well, but we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And that's something I'll say right off the bat. The cast really commands this entire movie. I think really everyone does a fantastic job here, but especially Matt Dillon, who I think gives the performance of his career in this film. I loved what he did here as a character of Jack. Jack is someone who, he has many facets, you know, because he's a serial killer, he's always undergoing different identities, and Dillon just does such a great job at portraying this guy who should be on top of things, but he's not. In fact, a lot of the time, things aren't necessarily going his way, and I really loved, you know, what he did with this character here. He was able to project a false sense of emotion into a character that has no empathy, and that can be very hard to do, but Dillon really did go for it, and I've just never really seen him give this kind of range before. I've never really thought that much of Matt Dillon as an actor, but after this film, I want to see him do something again like ASAP because he absolutely killed it here, especially especially towards the end of this film. He has some really amazing work, and I really love what he did here. He was very terrifying, but he also was very charismatic in a way that I can't really explain, and I really love what he did here. And then Bruno Ganz in this film as well as the character of Verge. Now, this is a character that's a little bit hard to talk about without going into spoilers, but I thought he also did a very good job. He kind of serves as the main person that Jack is talking to throughout the film, and he does a very good job here as well. I thought he definitely gave a very good performance, and the rest of the cast as well also does a very good job. They're not in it as much as those two. Ganz and Dillon take up a big majority of the screen time, but characters like, you know, actresses like Uma Thurman or Riley Keough or, you know, say Siobhan, Fallon, Hogan, they all really do leave an impression on you. Whether or not they get a lot of the screen time, you know, they really do all leave an impression on you. I think everyone really did do a fantastic job here, and I was very impressed by all the performances here. But now I really want to get to the directing here, because obviously that's the thing that I think a lot of people are going to be very worried going into this. And look, I can totally understand if people have a problem with things that Lars von Trier does. Directing-wise, though, I think he does a very good job with this film. Something I was not expecting is that this film can be very much a dark comedy. Yes, there's a lot of dark things in it, and yes, at times it is very dramatic and things like that, but a lot of times it is a very satirical look at this character, and I think von Trier did a good job with not trying to glorify what Jack is doing. That's not what he's doing at all. He's simply just giving a very dark comedic look at it, because Jack is, as a character, we'll get to in a little bit, but I think the comedy actually worked quite well here. I was laughing a lot more than I was expecting, and I think he did a really good job with that. And when you couple that with the sense of dramatic stuff that's going on in the film and the very deep stuff that's going on, I think there's actually a very good blend there. I actually think the directing here by Lars von Trier was very well done, and I really like what he did here. The writing as well, though, I think is very well done. The writing itself is really great, and it's different than what I was initially expecting, because what most of this film is really Jack reflecting upon what he does as a serial killer, you know, the certain things that he's committed, but we really do get a good look into who he really is. Jack is someone who is a failed artist, and he's someone who wanted to be an architect, but he didn't really have much of a future at it, and basically, because of this, he kind of looks at the artistry of everything, right down to his killings. He looks at everything as, you know, something an artist would do. And I thought that was a really good approach to it. I actually really liked that idea. And a lot of the conversations between him and Verge are very compelling. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and like I said, Dillon's work in particular is very much good. It is really great, but the dialogue in particular is really great here. I really loved the way that stuff was laid out. There's a lot of interesting stuff that Verge and Jack really leave you to think about, and I definitely enjoyed that a lot here. However, like I said, one of the highlights of this entire movie are all of the random incidences that we see Jack involved in, because he does not act like a typical serial killer. He will often admit to things that a serial killer wouldn't. Someone says he killed someone, he'll admit to it. You know, while most serial killers try to get away from a crime scene, he stays there until every single spot is clean, because he is extremely OCD with that. He's someone who has this really bad compulsion where even if something is clean, he'll just see it as dirty. And there's literally a whole sequence where he stays where a crime scene is and just cleans up the entire house. Even though he has just killed this woman, he stays in this crime scene, and stuff like that is just great. I loved getting into the insight of this character, seeing that he's someone who, he's not on top of things, as I said. He's not someone that is this genius serial killer. A lot of the times he is very much fucking up, and I thought that was a really great idea, actually, seeing how flawed he is as a serial killer, but also seeing, like I said, the lack of empathy that he has. I mean, this is someone who is very pathetic. He has no empathy whatsoever, and he's constantly finding less and less of a reason to care about these people, and you know, you see how he struggles with that. He starts to get more irritated by these people as it goes on, and I think that the incidences they do a very good job in showing the progression of time, showing how, you know, he starts off and he's like, all right, I got this, but as it's going on, he starts to get more agitated by them, because he's kind of a misanthrope in that way, where he doesn't really seem to like anyone. He doesn't seem to like having a conversation, and I think they handled that very well here. However, a lot of people are going to say this, and I will agree, the film is also very much a look at who Lars von Trier is himself. He's said before that minus the serial killer angle, this is basically him, which is a really interesting idea. You know, when you look at who Jack is, I mean, this is someone who seems to have no empathy, but he also seems to have no remorse for what he does, and seems to have no restraint whatsoever. Who also has no restraint? Lars von Trier, and you see how he's someone who is very OCD. Lars von Trier is also very much OCD. He's admitted before that there were times where he wanted to quit as a director, and you really do see that communicated here, but that idea also works against the movie, because there are times where it is blatantly obvious that Lars von Trier is just kind of jerking himself off. I mean, there is one scene especially between Verge and Jack where they have this one sort of slideshow comes up, and you see Jack and he's talking about his work, and Verge is like, oh, they're all masterpieces, and Jack, it's like, oh, it's more of a masterpiece, and I'm like, all right, von Trier, we see what you're doing, but back it up a little bit, okay? You're not God, okay? You're not Jesus, and maybe you should just dial that down a bit. But other than that, I do think the film actually does work well as kind of a look at who Lars von Trier is. You see that he seems to have this very interesting look at himself, and, you know, if you want a film that kind of has an introspective look at Lars von Trier, this film will very much do that as well, and I think that was something that was also handled very well here. The cinematography in this film is also really damn great. There are a lot of really great shots here that I definitely really do enjoy a lot. This one picnic scene especially, it's one of the most harrowing things I've seen all year. It is absolutely terrifying to watch. You know something is going to happen in that scene, but the way that is filmed is just terrific. The entire epilogue of this film is just absolutely bonkers, and it goes into some really weird places, but I love the way that was done. The way that was handled was just perfect. I love the way that epilogue was done. It honestly is one of the best parts of this entire film, and I think the cinematography very much does stick out there. There are some really great shots in this film, but something to know going into it is that about half of this film is basically like a PowerPoint, and that might be grating for some, because the whole idea of the film is that we know that Jack and Verge are talking, but we don't actually know where they are or what they're going to. It's very much, it's like pitch black, and all you see are like these still shots. And I thought that was a really cool idea as sort of this framing device, because the whole film is leading up to where are they, and how does Jack get to this point in time? And I think that was actually a really cool idea, the way they decided to do that there. And for me, I can understand if some people don't like the cinematography in this film, because it can be a bit over, the still shots and things like that can get a bit irritating. I totally understand that. For me, on the other hand, I actually thought it worked very well. I really liked what they were trying to accomplish there, and I like the way the story was told. I haven't really seen something done like this before, and I thought it was really cool the way they did that. Now, of course, the one thing people are going to ask me is, how violent is this film? And I will say it is very violent. However, the cut that I watched, at least, it's not as graphic as I was expecting. There's a lot of stuff that is done off screen, and I will say, all the violence in the film, it is purposeful. There's definitely a purpose to it. There's nothing that feels gratuitous. There's nothing that's just there for shock value. And I really don't know why people are saying that. Like, this film is not shock value. Jack is a serial killer. By design, he's going to kill. By design, you're gonna see some graphic shit. I mean, that's something that you should expect to see in this film. Now, I can understand the knee-jerk reactions that some people are having, because from what I understand, a lot of the stuff that's cut out of what I watched, it's not cut out of the director's cut. So again, I haven't seen the director's cut. I very much want to after this film, because it is definitely a film I do want to watch quite a few more times. But for me personally, I think that the violence was very well handled here. I think that it definitely was purposeful, and I liked the way that it was done here overall. And again, I can understand some people, it can be very hard to stomach, but for me personally, I thought it had a purpose. It was understandable why the film was as violent as it was, considering the subject matter, and I really did not have a problem with it here. The score in this film as well is also very good. Nothing really amazing. It's not like one of the best scores of the year or anything, but I definitely really did enjoy it. There is one song that plays pretty much every time Jack does kill someone, and it's definitely very well handled here. You also very much do feel like you're in that 70s sort of time period. It is hard to tell where we are at points, but whenever music plays or things like that, they handle that quite well. The editing to this film, the film is very long, and for some that might be a problem. For me, it was actually pretty breezy 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like, I wasn't really feeling the pacing ever in this film. There was really never a point where I'm like, oh, that's going on too long. Now, granted, I only watched the theatrical cut, the R-rated cut. I did not watch the director's cut, which I know a lot of people have seen, so I can't say much about the director's cut. But definitely I will say the film itself, it is very well paced, and I definitely did enjoy that. Now, in terms of flaws with this film, when a film is this different, it can be kind of hard to pick them out, but there are two things that very much do stick out. I already touched upon the fact that the film can get a bit too self-indulgent at points. There's that one point I mentioned, and there are a couple other points where it just feels like the film is trying to blatantly explain things to you, and I don't think they really needed to do that. Two, is that while I do enjoy the incidents in this film, there really is never a larger purpose as to why Jack chose these 5 specific incidences, except that he says, oh, they're just random, but like, why these 5? All the people you've killed, which he's killed a lot of people, why did you pick just these 5 incidences? It just, I would have wanted a little bit more of an explanation there, a larger purpose for why that was. I think not only would have driven the story a little bit more, but actually would have fueled some of Jack's other choices throughout the film. Some of the things that he decides to do, some of the regrets he has. I just think it would have illustrated just a bit more explanation there, and I would have liked to zero in on that more. But really, other than that, I think this film is very well done. It was much better than I really was expecting. There are definitely some things that I do want to rewatch, and it's definitely a film that is absolutely not for everyone. I mean, it's controversial for a very good reason. It does not hold back. It can get very bleak. It definitely deals with some very sensitive subject matter, and if someone doesn't want to see some really gruesome shits, then stay away from this film, because it's definitely not for you. Me personally, I thought that what was in here was purposeful. I thought Von Trier was able to tell a really good story that admittedly can get a bit self-important at times, and definitely can get a bit pretentious at points, but for the most part, I really did love it. The ending alone is enough a reason to really love it. And also, I gotta say this right now, finally a film that has that, like, chapter structure that actually does have a purpose in this film for why it is divided into, like, different chapters. But again, you know me, that's just a nitpick that I seem to have with films like these. But other than, overall, I really enjoyed The House That Jack Built a lot. I think it's a very well done film. It's much better than I really was expecting it to be. I went into this film not really knowing how it was going to be, and I came out actually really loving it. I think this is a very well done film. It gets you into the head of a very deranged and, you know, flawed serial killer, and it definitely gives you what you want. If that's what you want in this film, I think you're definitely going to get that. It has a standout performance from Matt Dillon. It just overall is a very well-crafted film that definitely shows the talent that Lars von Trier really does have, and I am going to give The House That Jack Built overall an A-. Again, I can understand if some people take issue with this film. I totally do get that, but for me personally, I thought it was very well crafted. I really liked the way it was done. I liked the story that Von Trier was trying to tell, and I think it worked for the most part. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall, if your thoughts. And again, what's your favorite Lars von Trier film? Did you take issue with the stuff in this film? I mean, this is definitely a film to have conversations about, and I definitely want to have a conversation with you guys about it, you know, especially the ending. There's a lot of different interpretations there, but that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.